While homicides and shootings have been on the rise throughout much of the country since the pandemic began, in Boston, those rates have been falling. But there's still obviously a lot of work to be done because even one shooting or death is one too many, with each ripping apart families and communities. That's why for the past several years, the Dorchester-based nonprofit Uncornered has worked to stop those cycles of violence by reaching out directly to current and former gang members and at-risk youth, among others, to provide them with mentorship and other support. Among the services offered more recently, mental health. In the fall of 2020, Boston Uncornered hired its first director of mental health support, Eleanor Forbes, who joins me now along with Mark Culliton, co-founder and CEO of Boston Uncornered. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining me. Mark, I want to start with you because, it doesn't seem like a big stretch to me to make a connection between mental health and solid mental health and a safe community. When you're talking about mental health and reducing violence, what are you talking about?
Oh, well, there's just so much trauma that leads to actions that create cycles of violence in our community. And when you're engaged with this small percentage of the population that's engaged in gang violence, it's 2% of the population responsible for 75% of that crime. There's a lot of trauma, both pre-existing trauma and new trauma that comes with the violence that's seen in our communities. And so getting to the root of that and having a way to support our staff to then support the young people who are active in gangs is critical to their being able to think differently about their lives and choices and future.
Eleanor, I think that prior to COVID, most Americans have always thought of mental health as something that's over here, right? Our bodies are over here and mental health is over here. And obviously, mental health advocates don't like it when you draw a line between mental health and violence, but the reality is we all are struggling with mental health in one way or another. And unfortunately, for some, sometimes violence is an outcome of that. Can you talk about what some of the factors are that impact someone's mental health?
Well, for the population that we work with at Boston Uncornered, I would just basically say the thing that impacts them the most is the trauma from their childhood. Something that, in a lot of these disparities in neighborhoods, poverty, absent parents, parents with substance abuse issues, actually make a lot of our children actually turn towards looking for a family. And the gang violence, the gangs are out there open, ready to receive them. And we don't realize that there's kids who are didn't eat, need a way to be able to figure out how to provide for themselves because they don't have, the necessary skills to do so because they haven't been taught. And so these are a lot of the things that really lead to our children and the population we have in Uncornered. We look at their trauma and it's a huge trauma history.
Mark, before we get into some of the details of what you're doing in the mental health space, talk to me and tell our viewers a little bit about what Boston Uncornered does just in general.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's the idea that we can only truly unlock the potential of Boston by ending gang violence, ending street violence, and we can only do that by actively engaging active gang members and getting them to think differently and act differently. And we do that by hiring formerly gang-involved individuals from particular neighborhoods and crews, trusting them to engage the most active, influential members of any particular set, and then meeting them, expecting greatness of them through the path from corner to college, and providing them an opportunity to make different choices through a direct stipend. All of these evidence-based practices that work incredibly well, and we just provide the scaffold. And what's become increasingly clear time after time is you can't do any of that until you've dealt with your underlying mental health issues that get in the way of so much of the ability to take advantage of opportunities in front of you.
Eleanor, talk to us a little bit about the ways that this mental health intervention would work specifically with this community and this constituency.
Well, what we've done is at Uncornered is we found an unconventional way to do mental health because, as you talked about previously, been such a stigma in our community. And when you say mental health, everyone wants to say that there's nothing wrong. However, we figured that we just take everyone's daily life skills to help them understand that there are mental health issues and there are mental health challenges, but we look at the lagging skills and we worked along with the tool called collaborative problem solving with Stuart Alblon from Mass General. And so we use this tool to really look at with all of our ex gang members that, come to us and the ones who are still involved. We just say, what is your lagging skills in communication? Tell us how you communicate with people. What are your lagging skills in attention, work, and memory, cognitive flexibility, social, emotional skills, and even social thinking. And, we just make scenarios to make them laugh, to kind of feel like, okay, where's this lady going? And so I always tell people the pancake joke. And the pancake joke is that when your spouse or your partner makes pancakes and you like those round fluffy pancakes, I said, is it easy, medium, or hard for you to tell them, these are not the pancakes that I like? And when the CRA say, oh, nope, not in my house, it's hard. Or, the student said, oh, no, we can't have that conversation. I said, so that's hard for you. Well, let's talk about, as we work, we're going to talk about how that will get easier. How can you communicate to say how you feel about those pancakes? And how can you help the other person that you're talking to understand your feelings and different things like that? And when we do that, they all sign up. They say, well, I want to do this, and I'm like, yeah, you didn't know this was therapy? They was like, no. So this has been the big thing about our success with these ex-gang members that we hire. And those who are even coming in, they feel like this is a fun way to do therapy without feeling like that there's something really wrong.
Yeah, and Eleanor, I have to say, in my own personal life, I know that you just don't do an intervention or a treatment with an individual. It's usually the family that's involved. I was recently informed that me being snarky about how no one's paying attention to me is not a way to actually communicate appropriately to get what I need. I'm going to maybe go back to the pancakes and see if I can work on that, because I'm not sure if I can change at this point. But how are you working with the folks around the people you're working with their families and with the communities? Because many of these folks, they've lived here for generations. They don't want to move. They don't want to get out of their neighborhoods. They want to stay in their communities. How are you working with the whole thing?
Well, I always say unconditional positive regard, like Carl Rogers. You have to walk into all these family settings with authenticity. The one thing that helps me with that is I'm a child of trauma. I have a severe family history of trauma, absent father, mom with substance issues. That was in her past. And seeing gang violence, I come from Philadelphia, came here to Boston and got uncornered. And now the best thing about this is that working with this ex-gang population, even with my husband being an ex-gang member and serving time in prison, it has been so close to home that it's easy that when I'm doing it within my family, so it's been easy to transition and navigate my skills to be able to work with the other families at Uncornered.
Mark, lots of folks in the city are, we've been celebrating in some ways our lower than other cities' violence rates over the past couple of years. But as I said in the open, any violence is too much. And we are seeing an uptick in certain neighborhoods. Sometimes when we report these numbers, we're reporting the whole city, but we're not looking at neighborhoods like my neighborhood in Roxbury that, has issues going on a regular basis. What's your take on what's happening and how the police, especially in Boston, are responding and the community services responding to what folks are afraid may be a long, hot, and dangerous summer?
Yeah, I think fundamentally we're doing better than a lot of places, but we're not doing enough. And the police have their jobs to do, and that's been shown throughout the country that the police doing enforcement matters, but we need to invest heavily in prevention and engagement. We should be the first uncornered city in this country. By that, we should end gang violence, street violence. We can. It's 175 shootings a year, about 50 homicides in this very small group. We know who they are, we know how to get to them, and they want to do something different. We need a universal commitment to get close to love, to believe in this population. And when you do, they change. And it's really the core belief is when they change, our communities thrive in a way that they've never been able to. So it's a call to action to let's get it done and let's get over that cliff. We've been really successful, but we're stuck. And that'll either go up or we can collectively decide we're committed to these young men and women, these families, and we can get to zero.
Eleanor, do you feel that there's been a shift? I mean, I know that we've talked a lot about racial inequity and racial justice, issues with the police department, where the money is spent for police departments. But I mean, I've been talking to police in my family and in my whole life who always say we need more help dealing with issues that are beyond our scope. You know, I didn't just, decide to become a police officer to become a social worker. We need more help on that front. And, even though it's still a hot topic, I feel like we've turned a corner and people are beginning to understand that an intervention with a family is a step to make sure a crime doesn't get committed or that they become a victim of a crime, and that it keeps police from having to deal with that. Are you feeling that as well, or is that just my crazy spring optimism that's seeping in?
I would say half and half. I will believe that if we do get families involved, but first we have to have people become vulnerable. They have to be able to be vulnerable enough to ask for help. They have to be vulnerable enough to be able to say that there is an issue. And right now, as the role that I play, it's really busy that parents are under a lot of stress, even with this pandemic. And, in our communities, they're fearful. They're fearful to ask for help. And then even now, as we talk about with the disparities, there's not enough clinicians or help out there for those individuals, especially when people want someone who looks like them and understand them. And that's a big thing for us right now. We don't have, the capacity to meet the need. And so, I would just say definitely if parents get involved, if parents' eyes are open and they just, find that confidence to be able to move beyond the guilt and the shame and to be able to say, I'm going to ask somebody for help and to see where that leads me. That would just be the beginning step to, helping us out. But it would definitely have an impact, as Mark said, on the work that we're doing, because they can bring them to us and, again, help them become uncornered, but know that there are resources out there for them.
And mentor, to mentee with people who have walked the walk that can help folks on the path. Mark, if folks want more information about Boston Uncornered, where can they go?
Yeah, go to bostonuncornered.org. Check us out, come visit, come see the great work that's being done. And as always, if you want to donate, we'll take it. We're excited about the work that's done, but we know that any murder is too much, one too many.
Thank you both for joining me, Eleanor Forbes and Mark Culliton from Boston Uncornered. I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you
Thanks so much, Sue.
Thank you.